check well whether your solution solves real problem that people want to have solved. Open source can be a way to speed you up. It can be a way to actually, give you additional USPs, differentiate.
Still, you can get huge benefits from that if you do it right, and it can speed up your business. Hi, my name is Marcin Kokot and welcome in Product Odyssey, the series where we explore how to build products fundamentally better. Today with me is Mike.
Hi, hello.
Mike is the CEO at Vazco. And at Vazco, we work with open source projects. We advise on how to approach open source development and how to use it in your product development. And therefore, today we would like to discuss that topic and dive deeper onto the insights into it. So, Mike, let's start with explaining to the audience that haven't actually seen us before or listened to us why we are so close connected with OS and open source in Vazco and what's our history.
So I would say it's a little bit in the fundamentals of the company. Actually, the company was founded around the open source system. Back then, it was around 2009 when everyone wanted to have their own Facebook. So basically, we were providing plugins for the Elk platform, which was an open source social community. And back then, we actually built our popularity in this ecosystem, and that was, the vibe that built the company later. And there's also an interesting story how we promoted our solutions there. But after that, in around 2012, we became very active in Meteor community. That was a community that was built around a framework which basically provided a stable environment in the JavaScript ecosystem when those were times where new framework was coming out every week or every second week. And Meteor was a platform that lasted for years. And then we were basically also actively building the community. We were helping to make it thrive. After that, we also launched a popular package on React, where this is actually our solution, a dev tool, which was downloaded around 3 million times. And that's also something that at that time promoted our company in basically React community. And right now we're again building an open source solution. Right now it's focused around AI, a dev tool. So that's something that is going to be maybe the future for us. But also we're advising our clients on how to leverage open source to really use it as a tool.
Okay, so for the audience that isn't so much familiar into the experience with open source, if I'm a CTO, how you can convince me that I should actually care about open source and where to start with that?
Mm-hmm. Sure. So I think no one needs to be convinced that it's worth to use open source in your product. It speeds up development really a lot. And it's hard to think about development without the use of open source. But I think that what's interesting is how you can leverage open source to really promote your product or promote your services. And that's something that is often overlooked. It's an interesting tool. As every tool, you shouldn't use it all the time, but in some cases, you should consider it.
Okay, and what are the benefits? Like, if you need to take at least 3 main benefits of that kind of approach, so what would that be?
Mm-hmm. So I would say first, what people think the benefits are, which are not true.
Even better, yeah.
Very often you think that once you open source, you build a community that will help you build the product, the solution, the dev tool that you're building. And this is not really the case. What you get is some value from testing, some value from maybe different vendors, different roles that appear in the community. If it's a larger community, larger product, you have people building certain things, but it's very rarely that they align with your goals, with what you want to use, what you want to build. It's more, empowering your solution. And what you can really get from the open source community is, first of all, testing. So you can be sure that your code is quite robust, that people will find things that are not well designed, that will be maybe a problem for you in the future, because maybe the architecture won't be that future-proof. and this feedback, that's actually something quite valuable. But from the actual business point of view, when you are releasing a dev tool, the real value is that it will promote you. If you're, for example, selling your services, releasing a dev tool is quite a good way to talk to your clients, because you can start a discussion by saying, oh, listen, we're already cooperating because you're using our package. Maybe we'll talk about extending the cooperation instead of, okay, let's meet. And if the package is of the good quality, if they're using it and they like it, it's like extremely easy to convert this to a client. On the other hand, if you're building a product and you're thinking about open sourcing, there are a few things that open source can give you. The first one is you avoid the feel of risks of vendor locking.
Right. Yeah.
And that's one of the biggest, because whenever there is an open source solution, you can talk to large companies, large organizations, governments, and basically they are certain that, okay, like, this solution will be there. And of course it depends on the community, because you need to have a large enough community to be able to tell, okay, there are other people than us that can support your solution. It's not completely vendor locked on us. And that's a really big advantage, because most often this is topic of discussion whenever you are using certain solution. If you have one that has large community that can support it, or the other that is proprietary, rarely the second one is used.
Right. Just to question here on the vendor locking, because I understand that if it's open source, everybody can do the fork of the solution, and actually, if many are using on the market, you have some sort of safety net that I can use them, and if your company will go down, it will be somebody to support it. But isn't that also the case that if I'm the owner, if I will stop development, there are means that I will actually make this platform, if I've created that or dev tool, not usable at all as the owner? Or is there any way to secure on that?
So you say that you are the vendor of the solution and you want to stop open sourcing it.
Right.
Is it the case?
Yeah.
There are ways to do this, actually, and basically, every solution, it needs to be supported over time. And if you, for example, stop the support and with time, don't release new packages, if no one will take over, then basically, the open source package basically dies. There can be someone who will take over, or a community that will do this, but also all of this depends on the structure of how you build the community.
Mm-hmm.
Because at some point you want to have a community that will not die, for example, and you can have other advantages out of this, like other business goals. But yeah, there is a lot of flexibility here.
Right. Sorry, it was just to add it to the vendor locking. So it's not so much like a 100% proof seal here, but yeah, it's giving you better chances than if you go with a one single development without open source, right?
Yes, and you have a lot of wiggle room once you release, basically.
Yeah. You've provided a couple of benefits of that, like main ones that we have discussed, like testing and managing a community and upselling DevTool, or if you have a product to go further with that. Anything else to the benefits that resonate with our users and our customers?
Yeah, so like vendor locking is one, but another one is, for example, you may be building a solution that there is already one on the market, but you noticed, okay, like we're maybe a little bit behind this. Then once you open source, you speed up, you gain the traction, you gain the advantage. You basically leverage the open source community to have different USPs for your solution. Very often you can get like benefit of, if you use a certain solution, you would like to have access to the code at some points to be able to freely modify it. Then you can basically use open source in either a freemium model or other models where you open source part of the solution. And this is actually a very strong pressure that creates new solutions. So that's the second one. Then also you can use open source to build a certain monetization model, because of course, you can be just selling your solution, but with the open source, you can actually create a community that provides you more monetization options.
Can you dive deeper a little bit or give examples of that kind of different verification mechanisms here?
Yeah, so um, one thing you can build is basically a whole economical ecosystem. So if you release a product and it is attracting various companies, various specialists into the ecosystem, then you can build certain monetization frameworks on top of it uh, to uh, to actually benefit out of it financially. But then again, it depends on whom you attract. One type of company can be companies that basically take your solution and implement it in various companies. So you have different partnership options, like for example, the Camunda. Uh, Another option is to basically have a market for plugins for solutions that are extension of your open source, and then it's kind of like Apple Store model, for example. There are also options to provide visibility for what is going to happen with the open source and decision making. So you can have premium community members who have
Influence, yeah.
access to the even board uh, of the committee, for example. Uh, there are also some other ways how you can do this. Another option is freemium model where you have a paid for package, but also an open source package that promotes it. Or you can even earn on hosting, on, for example, providing really good setup for the open source code that you're releasing. There are, of course, more.
Yeah. So it's not that I can test. Maybe I can test also the revenue models or the business model part of that with open source, but it's rather I can actually even receive revenue stream, given revenue stream when I'm going open
Yeah.
source with a solution. I've seen the multiple options and the examples that you have mentioned, like hosting, supporting, or being the integrator, or taking the open source solution and building another solution on top of that. Many things will help also with the benefits that you have mentioned, like a testing, and then creating, upselling your services, or actually getting more marketing and being visible on the market. Those are pointing out to the fact that you should think about going with open source. But are there any situations where it's not worth of doing that? Definitely, it's connected with the cost and investment and different mindsets. So, any clear guidance when not to think about open source your solution?
Yeah, sure. Like one aspect, if you have a product that is really successful and you are first on the market, you just don't need to open source, and it's adding additional things you need to consider, you need to do, you need to understand. So when you don't have the capability for this, when you don't see the additional benefit, then you shouldn't do this. On the other hand, if you know that you won't be able to support the solution well, for example, you are building a dev tool, but you don't have anyone in the team that really understands the open source community and can really talk with the community, can really cater for the community. If you do this, it's going to be probably an interesting story, but not a pleasant one. So it's important to have someone that can take over the ownership of the community, even if it's in a really limited time, because you can handle this with 20 hours per month, no problem, very often. Of course, depends on the details.
But it's still it's clear that it's an investment. So if we don't, or if you're on the tight budget, or if you really don't have a time and really you're close to releasing the product, going open source, maybe it's not the approach here, right? It can be as think about the other alternative path, but again, with every investment, you need to think about, can I put money on it to get it back, right? Are there any kind of anti-patterns, clear one-to anti-patterns we have seen with people trying to go open source or using open source for promotion, getting revenue stream, or getting marketing?
The most popular one is that we have some package. It's interesting for us. We just release it and we don't do anything with it. Then it won't work. So that's the main one. Then also there are problems with handling the community. For example, if you provide someone who caters for the community, who doesn't understand this culture, who don't know how to talk to people, very often you get problems with people from different cultures who actually, if you handle it incorrectly, this can destroy the community, and basically the vibe of the community is very important, whether people really, uh, want to commit, because they're not paid. Many of them, they sometimes even benefit from using the open source from this ecosystem that you build, but you are not paying them. So you need to really, motivate them, and that's about the details. That's about not making mistakes, basically. So I would say those two, but there are many things worth
That's getting
considering.
wrong. Yeah. So let's switch gears and let's think about how to do it right based on our experience, based on the knowledge that we have from advising and also from building on our own. Um, think about it from the perspective that I'm a CTO that doesn't have any experience with open source approach. Where should I start? What should be my first step and the priority when I'm thinking about the initiative like this?
Mhm. So I would distinguish two different scenarios, because one is a dev tool,
Hmm.
and another one is a product. And the difference is that, with the dev tool, it's for developers and they build products out of it. The product is something that can be taken as it is and already used in business context. And with the dev tool, very often you need a good leader of the community. That's the first thing, that someone who will promote it, but it doesn't like you can become this leader as well. There are certain steps that you can take to really make this happen. And the first thing is, you need to understand the vibe. You need to understand like what's important for the community, what are the problems, how they communicate, where the communication happens. Then very often you can release certain small things that help the community, that attract attention. You can also take part in certain discussions, go to conferences, talk to people, help with other packages, and then you build your own visibility. And after that, it's very easy to, or it's easier to launch something that already has a support. Basically, it's worth to build your um, support base in the community.
Okay, you've mentioned something that can bring or show the red flag for a CTO if I'm trying to look at my budget. You mentioned that there is a leader which will be going to the conference. We need to organize that, take care of people. Is it a full-time job to actually
No.
be a leader?
So, like, I think that the critical part is because I've been leader in one community, but we also basically trained a leader in another one, in actually two already. And the most important part is you need to have someone who really likes it, who doesn't treat it as a job that you do from this hour to this hour, because very often something appears during the weekend, and if someone really uh, likes it, lives with it, and is in this culture, he'll be happy to answer, basically, because he treats it as his hobby, and you can compensate it in various different ways. So that's important, that you have someone like this, an owner.
Okay, so it's not maybe a full-time. It would be great if it's a full-time, but it's definitely some developer or some person from the organization that can take care of the community and live with it, right? And be
Yeah.
this
So,
leader there.
so basically, it's a kind of an entrepreneurial mindset, a little bit different, but you need someone who will be there when it's needed, but it's not a lot of time. It's actually more of a focus that is needed, and very often you can handle this in a very limited time, like 20 hours. But when you are, for example, building a product, that's a different story. Maybe we'll
Mhm.
get to this later.
Right, right. We've talked with Jan Dvorak recently around how to actually,
Mhm.
what does it mean to be a community leader and what are the antipatterns and patterns there. So we don't need to probably cover that. We can reference to the episode. But building a community itself, skipping the fact that I need to have a leader and I need to raise him and he needs to have a time for doing that. What does it mean other than appointing a person to have a community? Is it so that I need to have meetings I need to organize, I don't know, website and all the forum, or this is something else?
No, like in the most basic form, it's even enough to have an issue tracker, and that's already creating something. But then you can build on top of it. And for the dev tool, I would say that very often that's enough. Like you don't want to over invest in the community if you don't need certain aspects. So it's for the dev tool, I think that it's
enough then.
very good.
Okay, so I have a leader, I have a community. What's next? What are the other parts I should think about as a CTO when I'm launching this direction?
So whenever you're building an open source solution, there are certain aspects that you need to think about that are different from your proprietary code. And actually, it's a very good pressure on you to build a better solution, because one thing, you need good architecture. Developer experience is critical, and very often, like our solutions, they were always winning on the developer experience, on how well they're built, how easy they're usable. So maybe there are also other patterns, other solutions, but this one I feel is really strong. Yeah, okay, another pattern is addressing the problem that no one addresses. But then if something later appears that has better developer experience, then
you will win then. Either you're first on the market and then developer experience is not critical, or you are not the only ones, and then usability, because then users are developers which will be using that, is critical, right?
Yeah, then also it's about documentation, about other aspects of making it easy to use. The good open source solution has usually a small barrier of entry. You can use it quickly, and then only after time you have more options to customize. That's again for the dev tool. For the product, it can be more extended.
As a dev tool, we have mentioned that you need to have a developer experience, which means you have a proper architecture. Probably it means also that you need to have a good documentation and easy entry point, or make the onboarding easier. How much does it impact? That would be my fear. How much does it impact my regular development? What is additional work that I need to put on top of that to have this?
If you do this right, there's none. But the important part is to have good person working on the architecture. Like one of the anti-patterns is, okay, I have some junior developer that doesn't have anything to do right now. Maybe he'll build an open source package. And the start of building a good open source solution should be done by your most senior people. At least the planning, the first phases, and then you can extend it. But that's really helping a lot later.
So that means that I cannot use like a junior developers. I cannot use, I don't know, like developers which are not utilized. Like, okay, you don't have anything to do. Let's build open source solution from that.
Yeah, well, with scaling of the team, there are more and more opportunities to engage other people, but
Right.
not at first.
Yeah. You need to have a leader. So that's again probably this part, and then I need to have that. Maybe that's another anti-pattern, right? I cannot have that as a disconnected effort, right? So I guess it will be in both in product and in dev tool, that I cannot have this like this is the regular development, and then disconnected here is another team which is doing open source only, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I have architecture, I have onboarding, I have focus on the development experience, I have a leader, and I have a community. Anything else missing from the starting package for CTO?
Yeah, promotion.
Promotion, yeah, that's easy. You can buy it, right?
That's easy. You can get it for free. Or maybe it's not that easy, but it's much easier in open source community than with any other setup.
Okay, how do you do it?
One aspect, you talk to people that are leaders in other communities. And whenever you're building an open source package, very often they're happy to talk to you. When we were releasing our package, uniforms, we were talking with, I forgot the name, but a really great guy from Red Hat who was also building.
We provided in the notes, by the way. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And basically, he helped us to promote the solution in his community quite a lot. We're talking with multiple other people. So one thing is, if you're building, for example, a solution in like for given technology stack, there are communities around this technology stack. So then you can use this. You can talk to people there and use the structure to promote your package, and it's not treated as bad approach. Like people really like it when
Right, but that seems that it's like nothing new than you would think about from developing like a regular product. I need to go to the market, I need to find out users, I need to show it, I need to be on the conference, I need to convince them to use it, right? Here is basically that kind of marketing. I mean, like we have known communities where you can search for.
the difference is that if you do this with open source, you get much more goodwill. You get a lot of people that will tell you, okay, wow, that's great, I'll help you. The crazy story is that in the past I was organizing cruises, and whenever I was searching for someone to be a skipper on the boat, and I put paid for advertisement. Actually, sorry, I didn't do this, but I was thinking about this. But I looked at other people's advertisements. The responses very often were, "Oh, wow, this is so low paid.
Right, yeah.
I won't go there. That's an awful offer." But when I was putting an offer, okay, I'm searching for a skipper that will go on an not for profit cruise. The reaction was completely different. People were really interested in basically being the part of this. And this is the same with the open source. Like whenever you talk to people that are within certain open source communities about your open source product, they're very willing to commit to help you to improve it.
It's probably also connected with the fact that then the motivation is a little bit different, right? It's if you drop money from the table, it's only pure motivation. Do I want to do it or not? Not like it is paid, so even if it will be hard, I will do it because it's paid. And I think it's also then connected to the motivation of the person itself. There is the great explanation of the motivation drivers that we have discussed some time ago, pointing out that people sometimes are doing the job even if you don't pay for it, and even if it's not something as a main job. So actually open source, contributing to Linux, contributing to packages, people are doing that on the time that they are having a free time with the family and not working, and still doing that only because it's a recognition and I'm getting better, right? So I'm giving them opportunity for free to get better, to be
Yeah.
a part of something bigger, right?
Yeah, there is a lot of passion in open source community.
That's where we would like to thrive on. But it's not always so easy, right? So I can go for the marketing. I can understand based on your suggestions where I should go with the marketing. So I will market that. I will have first developers contributing. They come in and say like, oh man, that's really not a quality code, or this is the worst code I have seen. And then I have a developers and the leader which needs to answer that. How we deal with this kind of problem.
Your approach to such reactions is really important. You need someone who is really restrained, really polite, who looks at this and even for really angry comments can reply, okay, I understand your feedback, we'll take it into consideration. It's important for us to listen what you are saying and basically diffusing the situation, because very often it can actually escalate quite quickly, even from situations that you wouldn't expect them to escalate.
So I would like to believe that we have so great people on this planet that every developer can become a good sales and customer support person. But in reality, it's not. It's a very rare mix, as you have mentioned, right? I would like to have a leader which is entrepreneur. So I can expect that the majority of the cases will be situation that the team is not prepared to do that. So either I need to train them or I need to create this kind of mindset, right? So that's another investment. Any approach how to do that. It's not probably about one-time training.
Yeah, it's not just about training. It's about the culture again of open source, and that's something that if you're building an open source solution, it's good to have this in the company. It's also good to have a culture of sharing knowledge, for example, and once you have it, yeah, it's easier to train people for certain roles, but you also need to look at it during a recruitation process, for example.
Any quick fixes to that kind of situation? So if you would be advising right now, small company that is having their own product, but they want to do the dev tool promotion in your OS, what would be like a quick fix or a quick steps that you would advise them to do in order to see or verify that it's the right direction for them?
So first, check well whether your solution solves real problem that people want to have solved.
Mm.
It's like with standard product. Then talk to people again, like with standard product, and test quickly how people react. That's also very helpful. It can also change your direction. Then once you have this confirmed, build something that is robust, that has really good developer experience, that already provides the value, and you need to consciously look at when to open source, because it gives you benefits, but it also slows down your development of the solution, because you cannot tinker with it so much as before. So it's also good to plan like when I can open source it. It's also good to have pilot companies, for example, that can provide you feedback. How does it look? And then you don't create the big community right away, but you prepare for it.
Okay. Quick question around the licenses, right? That's something also that clients are asking. Is it only one license? Are there any kind of clear license models that I should use?
No, it's a jungle. There are many, and there are MIT licenses. There are viral licenses. That's the main separation, I would say. So MIT can be used freely. Viral licenses can be used, but then any code that you use this within is also needs to be covered by the viral license. But there are also plethora of other licenses solutions that can be really tuned to you. Like you can have, for example, anti-agency consultancy license, for example, that you're building a solution and you're using it as a service provider, but you're extending others from using it. Or there are licenses that exhibit use in certain cases, scenarios. That's very broad, and there are two aspects to this, because one is like what is the legal code? What does it change? How does it define the environment? But also there is a reaction of the community, because if you build a license that is your own and not tested, it's very risky, because you don't know how community will react, and community is unpredictable. And for example, the BSL license, which is kind of a mix of those two, maybe we don't need to go really deeply into this. At first was controversial. Right now it's not, for example. So with time it changes, and people change also their approach.
Mm-hmm. Is it a one-way door, as this is based on basically Jeff Bezos' approach, the one-way door that I cannot change that later and I need to make a decision right on the license? Or is it basically a two-way door? I can always move back and change the license even if I have deployed that?
Yeah, you can change. And that's actually, whenever you deploy, you should also plan how to structure the changes. Like you can start with one license, you can open source small part of your code, then maybe decide, should I open source it later? You can also go back, for example, and some parts of the code, whatever you open source, you cannot change the license in reverse. What you can do is through, lack of support, through releasing new versions, through promotion, you can actually, make the old version basically not used one.
What will happen if I would like to close this effort for some reasons? I don't want to invest, or I have seen that this is the wrong way. I have already a community, I have a leader, I have a marketing.
Mm-hmm.
What is the approach or possible here, or what could be the consequences?
It's different if you want to make it a proprietary solution. It's different if you just want to, leave the community to be. And the first aspect, it's complex. It depends on the situation. You can do this, but again, it requires some effort. And the second one, basically, whenever you have the community that is already active, it's very likely that the community will live on. If you already have, a structure of, how to make decisions in the community in place, that's actually something that you don't need to even change, because it will work on its own. And Meteor is a good example of this, where changing companies that were the owner of this framework didn't influence it so much. But again, some mistakes in how you manage community did. So it's all about those small details.
It will be always like treating that as a business, right? Because it's going out open source, even with the dev tool, it's going on the market and basically being open and with all the benefits and hitbacks coming from that, right? So I will have situations that I need to react to the negative feedback. I need to react to something happening. And in worst case, I need to close it. But as you're mentioning, it's not a one-way decision, one-way door decision. I can actually close it. I can probably leave it to be as a supported by others if the community is big enough, right? Or I can turn it out even still without any kind of big consequences. We've talked about the one-way doors and the license type, and then the fallback if everything goes bad. Are there any kind of like a single decisions in this kind of approach from the moment that I will think about going OS to actually being successful that are one-time decisions that are worth to think about and do it right?
So one thing is when you actually open source, how you communicate it, how you plan this, how you start building the community, because then it's hard to go back and change this. And it also closes some doors to how you change the architecture or approach or start solving a different problem. Like the solution, if it's popular, starts to live on its own. So that's, I think, the main one. The other ones, you can change them. It requires effort. It doesn't always work, especially if you have really popular package, for example, or really popular product again. Then that's harder. But a lot of those things can be changed with time.
Okay. And maybe a tricky question on the other side of the spectrum. Based on our experience that we advised to the clients, do you see any areas where our partners, our customers are spending way too much effort and time thinking that this is the decision that I need to make right or the action that I need to make right, whereas it's not so much critical?
Yeah, we have. I see situations like this, and sometimes it's about, okay, like when we release. Sometimes it's about the license. Sometimes it's about the how we build the community. Basically, it's about very often, aligning the stakeholders, answering all the worries that different people with different roles in the organization have. So that's those can be very different and hard to predict. But
right, and it's still probably also connected with all the Antipatterns you have mentioned, right? So there are still, even if we explain it, there will be people that will think that it's a free way of getting a code done by somebody else. Without understanding of the fact that you need to have a right community added to have this right. You need to have a good DevX. You need to have basically a support system and treat the feedback correctly and manage it. So it's basically another business line that you open. So there are lots of benefits, definitely way more benefits than the cost of doing that. But again, doing that right, even though it's very rarely, it's a mix of one-time decisions. You need to do it right. You can always change them. It's still worth of having the right partner and discuss it and do it based on the experience. We have circle around how to think about what are the benefits, what are the good approach, what are the anti-patterns, and how to think about the promotion and the decisions there. Did we miss any topic that is you think it's worth of covering when we are talking about the approach?
So I think that there is a difference between dev tool and product that's worth also discussing. And with the product, you have a little bit different approach because you have different people that come to the community. With dev tool, those are mostly coders, and this is a very specific community. A lot of people in this community, they really believe in open source. They're really passionate. With the product, you get people from different backgrounds, or at least different background than coding, specific to a given domain, and that can vary. And also your promotion, the aspects of how you want to build your open source solution, they vary as well. And here you focus more on the real problems that you solve for the given industry, and you also need to plan this a little bit more like a product. And there are different benefits than with the dev tool.
Right. I was not jumping directly into the difference between DevTools and products from the perspective of the users, because I always see that maybe simplified as like with selling a hammer, right? If with DevTools or with a product, I'm selling a hammer and I'm giving it for free, and then people are using that when they need it and they can provide a feedback. But with the dev tool, it's like I'm giving a product, and in the same group, they want to use it, but then they know how to build the product. They know how to build the hammer. They know how to improve it. They know where it's not working correctly. So it's more like a more innovator group that is working with that. I need to handle probably the feedback and the information from them better. So maybe it's wrong, right? But I'm seeing that the dev tool is actually harder to approach strategy than the product from this perspective.
It's different, and you need different culture, different approach. But with products, there are also certain hard aspects. Like, for example, in the product, it's worth to build a community. But through community, I mean, of course, here in both cases you have the community, but with the product, it's worth to have different roles and attract different people and see what is your value offer for all of them. And one group are people that will just take your solution and use it. For example, I don't know, you're building a solution for schools, and you maybe earn on different aspects of monetization from the community, or you earn on additional services. Then it's worth for you to build a community that also provides this solution for free to schools, that give you the size of the community, the recognition, and that's valuable. Then you also want to have people that will be tinkering with the solution, like not great developers even, just people that will understand a little bit of code and will help others with providing simple services. Then you also want to have a system of really good plugins, extensions, modifications, modules that people can create. And here you can really, that's an interesting business model, because you have an option to earn on the work that others are providing with good quality to your community. It's actually extending your solution without you having to invest in a huge team, in like finding different corners of how to improve the value of your product, because other companies are doing it for you. They're guessing for you. They're doing experiments for you. And you can even,
they are doing customer development for you, right? And actually doing the verification.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and as a vendor, you can actually look at it and see, okay, like this is interesting. Maybe we'll include this in the product. That's actually something where all those expensive tests are being done for you, and as a vendor, you always have quite strong position. Well, it depends. Sometimes you can build a community in a way that you don't. But that's one advantage that you can have up until some point, for example. And then you want to have also integrators, for example, that take the all of this and implement this. You can have partnerships like with, for example, Camunda, or you can have other ways how to monetize the community. Then you can also have really big players that are inside the board of your solution once it grows, and all of this can be beneficial for your community. A lot of those aspects you can actually monetize in a way that everyone benefits. That you can professionalize the services in the community, and you give other people an option to earn on this, but that speeds you up. And structuring this community, this requires a little bit of time, and also you can use other aspects of promotion that are maybe for the dev tool, for small dev tool, that they are not that useful. Of course, there are dev tools that are huge, so that's different. But here you don't need to promote just through um, talking to people just through other communities. What you can start doing is doing meetups, doing technical conferences, and using other ways how to really again use this specific setup of the open source and this goodwill to make your promotion cheaper, but also at scale.
Right. So it seems that on the effort is the same or the same. There is an effort existing in setting up the DevTools. The same is with the product. I would still argue that on the user side, I'm more feeling okay with going with the open source product rather than DevTool, but that's due to the fact that I'm not engineer 100%. But then there is still an effort on the business side, mostly when we are thinking about the product, because it's about the vision. It's about how to set up the the integrations, how to set up the whole community, how you want to work with them, how you want to prioritize the functionalities. And it seems like if I would be a CTO, I would be thinking it's a way huge effort to do it, and probably I'm not familiar with all the steps, but I see it also as the benefit of we're opening a new market, and it's good for you. It's about the same things that you would need to think about anyway when you are developing a product. It's about updating your vision, going with the marketing, going with the verification of the business model and on the market, right? So the effort gives you return. So it's worth of learning that and teaching, learning from the partners or from the sources that are that have this knowledge. And it's not the first time we are doing that on the market. So there are lots of examples how to do it right.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, do we want to add anything to the anti-patterns that we see in the not DevTools but the product, open source product and the development and approach to it?
I think we summarized it quite well. And again, there are multiple caveats, but it depends on the particular
Sure.
situations.
So that closes again. I guess that right now then we have closed this loop of going through DevTools and then the product of how to approach it, how to start to build community, how to promote it, how to build actually the knowledge and the culture inside of our company to support this effort. Any kind of 3 points you have mentioned already, a couple of main points before, but any 2 points or three that you would like to resonate for a CTO after listening to this episode?
Mhm. I would say it's great to treat open source as a tool, to know how to use it and to know when it can give you value. And especially in cases where, for example, maybe you have a product, but you see that you're behind the competition, open source can be a way to speed you up. It can be a way to actually, give you additional USPs, differentiate. On the other hand, if you have a great package that you use internally, it can be used to promote your services, basically. And that's also another aspect. And whenever you go into the open source, it's good to prepare for this. It's good to, first of all, build a culture of open source in your company. And then, build this consciously, because it's then much cheaper. You don't need to learn in the process.
Okay, that's are the points that I would agree also, and I would add actually one point or the main thing that I see most resonating. This is the fact of the anti-patterns that we have discussed, right? That treating the open source as something just as a one-time shot and leave it there, fire and forget, and people will contribute without any cost,
Yeah.
or it's a free power to actually boost your sales. Or to make marketing, which is not the case. It's still, you can get huge benefits from that if you do it right, and it can speed up your business. But definitely, you need to do it with the right way, and you can adapt later. But you need to know that you are building that on the experience.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's probably closing the today's episode. Thank you, Mike, for having this discussion. It's a lot of information. Again, we have wrapped up the insights from our experience, but also from previous episodes and the discussions. So it's getting us further onto understanding of how we can actually build products fundamentally different based on using actually OS as a tool. So thank you for today. And thank you all for watching and staying with us. If you, as always, have any feedback, questions, or concerns to address in the episodes, next ones that we will have, feel free to leave us a comment. We are on Apple, we are on Google, we are on YouTube, so feel free to reach us there. Once again, thank you for watching and stay tuned.